My wife cheated on me with our neighbor, and now she's claiming I owe her $200, $0 in equitable distribution for half our house, even though she destroyed our marriage, and I just found out she's been secretly selling our property behind my back. I can't believe this betrayal and the legal nightmare I'm about to face. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd find myself sitting in a dimly lit room, staring at my wife's phone, heart pounding like a drum. It started with small things, her being unusually secretive about her texts, late nights that turned into early mornings, and a sudden interest in her appearance like she was trying to impress someone else. It all seemed like typical marriage stress at first, but then I noticed her phone kept disappearing. She'd hide it whenever I came near, always insisting she was just talking to friends. Yeah, right. One night I decided to check her messages. I know. It's not the most mature move, but I was desperate. I found texts from our neighbor that made my stomach churn. They were flirty, filled with inside jokes, and the way she signed off "can't wait to see you tonight" made it clear they'd been meeting up. I saw photos of her in his house, her in a revealing dress I'd never seen before, and even some explicit messages. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How long had she been cheating? How blind had I been to all the signs? The betrayal hit me like a freight train. I felt numb, then furious. I started to piece together the times she'd been distant, the excuses she'd thrown at me about work, her sudden obsession with her looks, and the way she'd dodge my questions. It was all a cover-up. I couldn't believe she'd lie so effortlessly, spin stories, and pretend everything was fine while she was sneaking around with our neighbor. It's one thing to cheat, but to lie about it so easily. That's what really tore me apart. The next day I confronted her. I told her I knew about, showed her the messages I'd saved. Her face went white, but she quickly recovered and started with the usual bullshit about how I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that I didn't understand her. She said was just a friend, that they'd only met once or twice, and that I was making a big deal out of nothing. But I could see her nerves, her little nervous glance away, her trembling voice. I knew she was lying. She kept insisting I was crazy, that I was jealous and insecure, even accusing me of spying on her because I didn't trust her. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. I'd trusted her for years, and now I was faced with this betrayal that felt like a punch in the stomach every time I thought about it. The emotional impact was brutal. I wasn't just hurt. I was angry, betrayed, and deeply confused. How could she do this? How could she look me in the eyes and lie so effortlessly? I felt like I didn't even know who she was anymore. We had a life built on what I thought was honesty and respect, and now I was realizing it was all a facade. I kept replaying her words, her lies, and that image of her within her head. It made me question everything: our marriage, her feelings, our entire future. The worst part was feeling so helpless, like I was losing not just my wife but also my sense of stability. After the confrontation, I decided I couldn't just brush this under the rug. I started to dig deeper. I found out she'd been secretly selling off parts of our property, our house, our savings, behind my back. I had no idea she'd been planning this. Turns out she'd been meeting at our house when I was at work, making deals with real estate agents, and moving money around like she was preparing for a life without me. I was stunned. How could she betray me not just emotionally but financially? I felt a mix of rage and despair. It was like I was caught in a nightmare where everything I believed about my marriage was a lie, and now I was left to pick up the pieces of a life she was trying to destroy behind my back. Once I uncovered that she'd been secretly selling parts of our property, I knew. I had to act fast. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized, someone who had been plotting behind my back, manipulating our assets and destroying everything we built together. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined, and now I was staring at a legal mess that made my head spin. I couldn't believe she'd gone so far, selling our house, our savings, without even telling me. All I wanted was to understand her reasoning, but her explanations only made things worse. When I confronted her about the property sales, her reaction was typical. She shrugged, acting like it was no big deal, like I should just accept her new freedom. She told me I was overreacting, that she had every right to do what she wanted with her share of the house, even if I had no clue she'd been planning it for months. She kept insisting that I owed her $200, $0 in equitable distribution, because she claimed she was entitled to half of everything. I just stared at her, trying to process how she could be so callous. She had destroyed our marriage, and now she was demanding money from me as if she's the victim. I started digging through our financial documents, trying to get a grip on what I was facing. What I found was staggering. She'd been selling off property behind my back, transferring funds to accounts I didn't even know existed. She hidden her tracks well, but it was all there in the paper trails. I found receipts of her meeting with real estate agents, emails about her divorce plan, and even messages where she was bragging about how she'd taken everything from me. It was like waking up in a nightmare. I felt betrayed, furious, and utterly helpless. How could she do this to us, to me? Her lies kept piling up. She claimed she was just trying to protect her interests, that I was controlling, and that she deserved her fair share. She threw around words like justice and equity as if she was the victim. But all I saw was a woman who had no remorse, no guilt, just a cold determination to walk away with what she wanted. I couldn't believe she'd turn our marriage into a legal battlefield, all while lying in my face about her affair and her schemes. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of secrets, and every new discovery made my blood boil. I knew I had to do something. I reached out to a lawyer, and that's when everything exploded even further. The lawyer told me she was claiming I owed her $200, $0 as part of equitable distribution, even though she destroyed our marriage, cheated on me, and was secretly liquidating our assets. I couldn't believe the audacity. She was trying to spin it as if she was the victim, as if I was the one who had betrayed her. But the truth was she'd betrayed me first, emotionally, financially, and legally. I felt sick thinking about how she was trying to manipulate the system, how she was turning my trust into her own advantage. The legal battle was only just beginning, but I knew I couldn't let her get away with it. I started gathering evidence, texts, emails, bank statements, everything I could find. I even hired a private investigator to verify her movements when I wasn't home. Every piece of information painted a clear picture. She was not only cheating on me, but also trying to take everything I had worked for. I was furious, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't just about money or property. It was about respect, trust, and the life I thought we shared. Now I had to fight to protect what little was left of it. I kept asking myself how I got here. How did I go from a happy marriage to this legal nightmare, betrayed and financially robbed? The pain was overwhelming, but I knew I had to stand my ground. I couldn't let her win, not after everything she'd done. I decided to fight, not just for my assets but for my dignity. I realized that the woman I married was gone, replaced by someone who cared only about herself and her greed. And if I was going to survive this, I had to be strong, strong enough to face whatever came next, even if it meant losing everything. The more I dug into her financial schemes, the angrier I got. Every document, every email, every conversation I uncovered confirmed what I feared. She had been planning this for months. She'd secretly negotiated deals, transferred money, and even taken out loans in my name, without my knowledge. I was stunned by how deeply she'd gone, how far she'd gone to strip me of everything I had built. It wasn't just about the house or the money anymore. It was about the principle, about standing up and saying, "You can't do this to me." I remember the day the legal papers arrived. She had filed for equitable distribution, demanding half of everything, even though she'd been sneaking around behind my back. Her lawyer's letter was full of lies, claiming I was abusive, controlling, and that I'd refused to share assets fairly. It made me sick to read that. She knew damn well that she'd been the one secretly selling our property, hiding money, and sneaking around with. Yet she was trying to paint herself as the victim, as if I was the villain in this story. The audacity of her lies made my blood boil. I decided I couldn't just sit back and let her manipulate the system. I hired my own lawyer, someone who specialized in divorce and property disputes. We started building a case, gathering proof of her secret sales, her hidden accounts, and her lies. I got a court order to freeze her assets, and that's when things got even messier. She went ballistic, calling me controlling and vindictive, claiming I was trying to ruin her, but I knew the truth. I knew she was the one trying to ruin us, trying to take everything and leave me with nothing. It was like a bad movie, but I was living it, and I couldn't wake up from this nightmare fast enough. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, bitchy, manipulative, and completely unrepentant. She told everyone I was abusing her emotionally, that I was trying to control her, all to sway the court's opinion, but I had the evidence. I had the texts where she was planning to leave, the pictures of her with the bank statements showing her money transfers. I knew the truth, and I was determined to fight for it. Every day, I felt the weight of this betrayal pressing down on me, but I also felt a flicker of resolve. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I wasn't going to let her walk away with my house, my money, or my dignity. The emotional toll was immense. I felt like I'd lost my partner, my trust, and my future all at once. I kept asking myself how someone could be so selfish, so ruthless. The woman I married had turned into someone I didn't recognize, someone who lied, cheated, and manipulated her way to a payday. I was angry at her, yes, but also deeply hurt. It's one thing to be betrayed, it's another to see someone you loved turn into your enemy. I kept thinking about the life we could have had, the vows we made, and how she'd thrown it all away for a quick escape and a pile of money. Despite everything, I refused to give up. I focused on the facts, on the law, and on protecting what was left of my life. I knew she'd try to spin things, to turn friends and family against me, but I had to stay calm and steady. I couldn't let her manipulate the narrative. Every time she screamed at me, called me names, or accused me of things I didn't do, I just kept reminding myself of the bigger picture. This was about justice, about fairness, and about stopping her from taking everything I still had. I started to realize that this wasn't just about the money or the house. It was about my dignity, my respect, and my ability to move forward without feeling like I'd been completely robbed. The legal battle was intensifying, and I could feel the pressure mounting daily. My lawyer advised me to prepare for her to try everything, filing false accusations, dragging out the process, maybe even trying to accuse me of abuse or misconduct to sway the court's opinion. I knew her type. She was cunning, manipulative, and willing to lie her way out of anything. Still, I had my evidence, and I was determined to stand my ground. I started documenting everything, every interaction, every lie she told, every sneaky move she made behind my back. I didn't trust her anymore, and I knew I had to be prepared for anything. Then came the bombshell. A few days after she filed her claims, I discovered she'd been secretly meeting with a real estate agent, trying to push through a sale on our house, without my knowledge or approval. I found out from a third-party source that she'd been negotiating a deal to sell our property for a quick cash payout. I couldn't believe it. She was trying to cash out on our marriage, on everything we'd built behind my back. That realization made me furious. She was so focused on her greed that she was willing to destroy our home and everything inside it just to get her hands on more money. I confronted her again. This time, she tried to deny everything, but I pulled out the evidence. The emails, the transaction receipts, the schedules of her meetings with the realtor. She looked caught, but her reaction was classic. She started crying, claiming she was just trying to protect herself, that I was trying to control her, and that she had every right to do what she wanted with her share of the property. She even accused me of abusing her emotionally for questioning her. I felt like I was in some twisted game, her lying, me trying to hold on to what little was left of my sanity and my assets. The emotional toll was becoming unbearable. I felt betrayed, disgusted, and helpless all at once. I'd always believed we could work through anything, but now I saw her for what she truly was, someone capable of lying and scheming behind my back at every turn. I kept replaying the moments when she'd promised to be faithful, to build a life together. Those memories felt like they belonged to a different person now. It was like I was mourning the woman I thought I married, even though I knew she was gone long before I found out about or the property sales. Despite the chaos, I refused to give in to despair. I doubled down on my legal efforts, gathering more evidence, talking to financial experts, and even hearing a private investigator to verify her whereabouts during her secret meetings. I wanted every piece of her deception on paper so I could fight her in court and show the truth. I knew this was a war, one I had to win not just for my property but for my dignity. I couldn't let her destroy me, even if it meant risking everything I had left. Every day was a battle, but I was determined to come out of this with some shred of my life intact, something she couldn't take away, no matter how much she tried. The worst part was realizing how far gone she was. Her lies had become so elaborate, so deeply ingrained, that she didn't even see how much damage she'd caused. She was convincing herself she was the victim, even as she was secretly selling our house, trashing our marriage, and planning her escape. It made me sick to think she could be so cold, so calculating. I had to accept that I was dealing with someone who was no longer the woman I'd fallen in love with. That realization made me feel more alone than ever, but it also strengthened my resolve. I was going to fight for what was mine, for what was rightfully mine, and I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything without a fight. The months that followed were a blur of legal battles, sleepless nights, and mounting frustration. Every time I thought I had a handle on things, she'd pull a new stunt, filing false accusations, claiming I was trying to ruin her reputation, or exaggerating her victimhood to sway the court in her favor. She was relentless, and honestly I was starting to feel the exhaustion seep into my bones, but I couldn't give up. I had too much at stake, my home, my dignity, my entire future. One of the most infuriating moments came when she accused me publicly of abuse, an outright lie designed to smear my name and turn people against me. She knew I'd be furious, and she played her card perfectly, knowing that the courts and her friends would hear her side first. But I had the evidence, texts, emails, witnesses, that proved I was the one being wronged. Still, it was a shock to see her stoop so low, twisting the truth to serve her own greed and vindictiveness. That's when I realized how dangerous she'd become, willing to destroy everything, including my reputation, just to get her way. Meanwhile, her attempts to sell our house kept escalating. I discovered she'd been talking to investors, trying to offload the property for a quick buck, even as we were in the middle of divorce proceedings. I filed an injunction to freeze the sale, but she fought back with everything she had. She claimed I was trying to control her, that I was jealous, and that she had every right to do what she wanted with her share of the assets. It felt like I was fighting a ghost. Her lies, her scheming, her manipulations, they all made me feel like I was drowning in a sea of deception. The emotional toll was crushing. I'd wake up feeling betrayed all over again, haunted by the images of her with the secret meetings and the house she was trying to sell behind my back. I'd see her face in my mind, that bitchy expression she put on when she was lying through her teeth. It was like I'd been living in a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. I'd ask myself over and over, how did I get here? How did the woman I loved turn into someone so ruthless and selfish? I felt angry, sad, and exhausted all at once, questioning whether I'd ever trust again or if I'd just be left with this bitter taste of betrayal forever. Despite everything, I knew I couldn't let her win. I kept pushing forward, working with my lawyer, gathering more evidence and preparing for the final showdown. I refused to be bullied or manipulated anymore. I realized I had been too trusting, too blind to her true nature, but now I was fighting back with everything I had. I started to see that this wasn't just about the money or the house. It was about standing up for myself, about reclaiming what was left of my dignity. I knew she'd continue her games, but I was determined to stay strong and not let her destroy me completely. Every day, I reminded myself that I deserved better, and I wasn't going to let her take that away without a fight. The final court date came sooner than I expected, and honestly, I was a wreck. All the months of fighting, the lies, the betrayals, everything had led to this moment. I sat in that courtroom, feeling like I was on trial not just for the legal issues, but for my entire life, my integrity, and my future. She was there, looking smug and bitchy as ever, trying to spin her web of lies one last time. She claimed I was a monster, that I'd emotionally abused her, that I was trying to keep her from her rightful share of the assets. But I had the evidence, proof of her secret sales, her manipulations, her attempts to defraud me out of my half of everything. When it was my turn to speak, I laid it all out. How she'd betrayed me, how she'd been sneaking around with, how she'd been secretly selling our property behind my back. I told the judge about the messages, the transactions, and the lies she'd spun to cover her tracks. I explained how she was trying to take everything I'd worked for, how her greed had destroyed our marriage, and how I deserved justice. I could see her trying to interrupt, trying to spin her lies, but I held my ground. I knew the truth, and I wasn't going to let her silence me. In the end, the court ruled in my favor. They ordered her to pay back the money she'd illegally transferred, stop the sale of our house, and split the assets fairly, considering her betrayal and illegal actions. The judge's decision felt like a small victory, but it didn't erase the pain. It didn't undo the years of betrayal and deception. Still, I felt a weight lift knowing that I had fought for what was right and that justice had been served, even if only partially. After the court proceedings, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I knew I'd have to rebuild my life from the ground up, but I also knew I'd survived something that could have broken me. I learned a lot through this ordeal, about trust, deception, and the importance of standing up for myself. I realized that some people are capable of incredible cruelty when they're driven by greed or anger, and that sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to fight back fiercely. Looking back, I wish I hadn't been so naive. I wish I'd seen the warning signs earlier, but I also know that I did everything I could to find the truth and defend myself. I learned that betrayal cuts deep, but it also reveals who people really are. I've come out of this battered but stronger, more cautious, and more aware of what to watch for in a relationship. My advice to anyone going through something similar: trust your instincts, gather evidence, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Because in the end, the truth might be painful, but it's the only way to truly heal and move on.